turn in our Bibles to the Old Testament scriptures, the prophecy of Jeremiah, and in chapter 8. That is the prophecy of Jeremiah and chapter 8. As we struggle to navigate our way through our COVID-ridden world, there are many aspects within this chapter that are relevant to our situation in the Western world in the memorable year 2020. Shortly, I shall refer to some of this relevance from within the narrative of the chapter. Meanwhile, in the interest of time, we can read the well-known verses marked 20, 21, and 22. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. For the hurt of the daughter of my people am I hurt. I am black. Astonishment hath taken hold on me. Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then is not the health of the daughter of my people recovered? For over 6 months, we have been meeting together in this manner for prayer and fellowship every Monday evening. This has been a rainbow of hope for us in these dark times in which we live. We gather from many nations in a common concern for the glory of our God, with particular regard to the impact of COVID-19 upon the church. We have pled with God repeatedly for deliverance and for spiritual revival, knowing that nothing less than an awakening of Pentecostal proportions can bring the church to her knees and turn the tide of evil sweeping across our world. However, as we now approach winter, we can echo the mournful complaint of the prophet Jeremiah. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Or if you prefer, we have not yet been delivered. So let's consider some of the parallels between Jeremiah's day and our own. In the context, Judah and Jerusalem have become grossly apostate before God. The southern kingdom of Judah chose to ignore the judgment that came upon their brethren, the northern nation known as Israel, at the hands of the Assyrians. So God was none too pleased with Judah and sent warning after warning of similar judgment to come. The phrase in verse 16, the snorting of his horses was heard from Dan, alludes to the imminent arrival of Nebuchadnezzar and his invading Babylonian army. But despite this and many other warnings, the people continued to defy God, violating his moral standards and committing spiritual adultery. Meanwhile, in verse 3, we read of the rather nihilistic view which had overtaken the people. Death shall be chosen rather than life. Do we not live with a culture of death in our own day, where life has become cheap and the unborn and the aged are considered a burden on humanity? We read in verse 5 that the people have slidden back by a perpetual backsliding. Our Western nations, once established on Christian principles and values, are backsliding into paganism and heathenism at a frightening rate of knots. We read in verse 6, no man repented him of his wickedness. It is hard for us to point a finger at our societies, when even the society of the church, in its broader sense at least, sees little or no reason to repent or to cry out to God. We read in verse 9, they have rejected the word of the Lord. If anything is evident today, it is the outright rejection of biblical teaching on the core issues of moral, ethical, and spiritual matters. We read in verse 10, everyone from the least even unto the greatest is given to covetousness. Covetousness has become so deeply ingrained in the mindset of our contemporary Western world, it is no longer possible for ordinary citizens to even understand what it is. We read in verse 12, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Shame and blushing disappeared from a landscape of the West when God's moral compass was rejected by godless social engineers. Then, more contemporary still, we read in verse 17, I will send serpents, cockatrices among you, which will not be charmed, and they shall bite you. It is not serpents and cockatrices that are biting us. It is COVID-19 that is killing many of our fellow citizens, now numbered over 1 million worldwide. Finally, in verse 19, we read, they provoked me to anger with their graven images and with strange vanities. Today, our world has its own trinity of gods and graven images, which they serve slavishly. Academia, science, and Charles Darwin. These have become the voices of authority when our rulers in the Western world in particular formulate their policies for our nations to live by. So on and on our dilemma goes. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. As Christians, we can also claim that for the hurt of the daughter of my people am I hurt. I am black. Astonishment has taken hold on me. We are saddened by the effect of COVID on the societies of men. We weep with those that weep over the loss of loved ones. We are deeply concerned at the economic collapse of so much commercial enterprise. We are particularly disturbed by the closed doors of many churches on the Lord's Day. And it is with broken hearts that we cry with Jeremiah, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then is not the health of the daughter of my people recovered? In other words, and again speaking broadly, why is the church and the world behaving as if there was no cure for the more serious ailments of society? Have we forgotten that there is a God in heaven who rules and reigns supreme? Have we lost all appreciation for the balm of his grace and the power of his love, which he freely offers us in the gospel? Hasn't he demonstrated again and again that he is the great physician with whom nothing is impossible? When he was in this world, Jesus Christ marched through every dark valley imaginable, through every disease and ailment which men considered incurable, through every obstacle and barrier confronting his peers, through every temptation and assault of the evil one. Why then should we be even asking, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Of course there is balm in Gilead, an abundance of it. Of course there is a physician, one with whom nothing is impossible. And that is why he has commanded his church and his people to go into all the earth to preach the gospel to every creature. And what is that gospel message but informing people of the great physician who delights in applying the balm of God's grace to the wounds and sores of sinful people? So notwithstanding COVID-19 and the hostile and desperate politics of men with feet of clay, let us, with faith and optimism, point others to the love of the great physician, in whose generous, gracious, and merciful hand they will find the balm of Gilead. Amen, and may